Lesson 8.6, Solve Multiplication and Division Equations. In this lesson, we're going to discuss how we can solve multiplication and division equations using the inverse property. Let's go ahead and get started. May ran 14 laps around a track for a total of 4,200 meters. The equation 14d equals 4,200 can be used to find the distance d in meters she ran in each lap. So in this particular word problem, they've already given us the equation, and so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to write that down. I see that 14d shows me I'm going to be multiplying, and so in order to solve for d, I'm actually going to do the opposite, or the inverse property, which is division. So in order to do that, I'm going to draw my fraction bar and write 14 below. Remember, fractions indicate to divide, so this tells me 14d divided by 14. Well, 14 divided by 14 actually equals 1, so that's going to get d all by itself. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. Off to the side, I'm going to go ahead and set up my work. And I know 14 can go into 42 3 times. And I see I have 2 more zeros after, and so d equals 300. Now that I figured out what d is, I'm going to go ahead and set up my check. I rewrite the equation, and I'm going to plug in what I believe d equals, in this case 300. I'm going to go ahead and solve 14 times 300. Oops, mistake right there. Alright, so 14, or 4 times 0 times 0, that's zeros, and 4 times 3 is 12. 0, 0, 3. To add them. Alright, 4,200. And so I see in this case 4,200 does equal 4,200, and so my answer checks out to be correct. Let's go ahead and look at another one. In this particular problem, they've just given me the equation and I need to solve for n. I'm using fractions. I see that I'm multiplying, so I know that I'm going to have to divide. It's very hard, though, just to go ahead and divide a fraction by a fraction, so I have to rewrite it the way it should be. So 2/3 divided by 2/3 equals 1/4 divided by 2/3. Remember, when we're dividing fractions, we have to use keep, change, flip. So I'm going to keep my original fraction, change my division to multiplying, and I'm going to flip my second fraction. We're going to do the same thing to this side. Okay, so 2 times 3 is 6, 3 times 2 is 6, so that cancels each other out and leaves me with n. And then I'm going to go ahead and solve on this side. 1 times 3 is 3, 4 times 2 is 8. And so n equals 3/8. I'm then going to go ahead over here and I'm going to complete my check. I rewrite my original equation and I'm going to plug in what n equals, which I believe is 3/8. I'm then going to go ahead and multiply. When we multiply fractions, we go ahead and just multiply across. So 2 times 3 equals 6. 3 times 8 equals 24. I then need to check to see if I can simplify my answer. And in this case, I know that I can divide each number by 6, and so that gives me 1/4. And my answer checks out. Let's go ahead and take a look at another problem. In this particular word problem, they do not give me an equation, so I need to go ahead and set that up before I can solve. A biologist divides a water sample equally among 8 test tubes. Each test tube contains 24.5 milliliters of water. Write and solve an equation to find the total volume of the water sample. So I know that each test tube contains 24.5 milliliters, and the question wants me to find the total volume. And so if I divided that total volume, I would have this. And I know that I used 8 test tubes, so I need to figure out what x equals. In this particular case, I see that division was used because they had split it up equally. So using the inverse operation, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to multiply. And so, excuse me. All right, and so we're going to go ahead and solve for x. In this particular case, the reason why this works is because if I actually multiply that 8, I now have 8x over 8, and that the 8's get canceled out. And so then I'm left with 24.5 times 8. And I have one decimal, and so I see that x equals 196. I'm going to go ahead and check my answer. Divided by 8. I'm going to show my work off to the side. Add a 0. And my answer does work out. 24.5 equals 24.1. Okay, last problem. Let's see if we can do this on our own. 2.5 times n equals 10. Again, I want to use inverse property, so the opposite of multiplication is division. These get crossed out, so it ends by itself, and 10 divided by 2.5. Move my decimal over once. 25 can go into 100 4 times, and so n equals 4. Go ahead and do our check. Off to the side, I'm going to do my work. Move my decimal over once. 10 equals 10. So the most important thing I think you have to remember is the rules that apply when we are multiplying and dividing fractions and when we're multiplying and dividing decimals. If you can keep those rules straight and you just do the arithmetic that goes with it, you'll be successful with finding the value of the variable. What you're going to do now is you're going to copy down our test prep question into your notebook. You're going to rewrite your equation, and just like we've practiced in class, I should see your equation written out and your work solved neatly and set up, and then the check to prove that your answer is correct. Once you have this completed, continue to hit play. Okay, time for our essential question. Copy down how do you solve multiplication and division equations, and in a 2 to 3 sentence summary, I want you to explain how you would use the inverse operation to solve for the variable. I look forward to discussing this with you in class.